CNN10 Script, Tuesday, August 6, 2024, School 107, The Collapse of Affordable Internet, May 3rd, 2024. Listen and repeat.
1968.
1968.
Student protesters at New York's
Columbia University take over several buildings and briefly even take the dean hostage.
One of the buildings they
seized,
Hamilton
Hall,
which students occupied during
recent protests
at
Columbia.
1968, the first time it was occupied.
1968, the first time it was occupied.
Hamilton Hall
was the scene of a dramatic police action
that
resulted
in the
arrest of 700 people.
Those protests against the Vietnam
War had been taking place for years on college campuses across America and would continue for a few more years from Columbia to Cal Berkeley to Kent State.
In
1969, student protesters at Harvard took over and occupied University Hall,
marching school officials
out of the building.
The primary difference between
them and now, the scale of the violence. While skirmishes have broken out at UCLA and some other campuses during the current demonstrations, these protests have been, for the most part, peaceful.
In the Vietnam
era,
violence broke out
routinely
and on
many campuses.
Students often brawling with police.
Disciplining students calling in the police, having protests removed. That tended to increase the sympathy for protesters, build the size of protests, and also increase the voice of more extreme activists.
In two horrific episodes,
the Vietnam era violence turned deadly.
In May 1970,
on the campus of Kent State University, Ohio National Guard troops opened fire on student protesters, killing 4 of them and injuring several others. Days later, during racial injustice protests at Jackson State College in Mississippi, police fired at a dormitory, killing 2 students and injuring a dozen others. Possibly a closer comparison to what's going on now took place in 1980s, when students across America protested against apartheid in South Africa.
They called on schools to divest themselves
from companies groups that supported the apartheid regime in South Africa,
much like students
are now calling on colleges to divest themselves from Israeli-linked companies. Another dynamic that hasn't changed across these eras of protest. They've got a lot of energy. They're idealistic, and they like to protest when things feel unjust or seem unjust to them.
10-second trivia.
10-second trivia. What is the collective name for single-celled microscopic organisms that live in the soil, water, and animals? Bacteria, blood, DNA, or virus?
Answer is bacteria.
Answer is bacteria.
The number of bacteria,
The number of bacteria did you know
that you have in your mouth
that you have in your mouth is more than the total number of humans on Earth.
That is wild.
That is wild.
All right. Is there a sustainable
Alright, is there a sustainable
alternative
for
for
fashion?
Maybe fabrics with 0%
Maybe fabrics with 0% animal or plastic.
Is that even possible? Well,
Is that even possible?
actually it is.
Well, actually it is.
London-based
This London-based biotech company,
Modern Synthesis,
Modern Synthesis,
has developed a way to
create low-impact textiles using bacteria.
Yes, you heard that right.
Yes, you heard that right.
Bacteria.
Bacteria.